From WDWNT, the worldwide leader in Disney Parks news, this is ParksCenter. Hello there, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of ParksCenter. My name's Ben, and joining me on tonight's show, we have Allison.
Good evening, everyone.
Jill! Hey, welcome back!
Oh, it's so good to be back.
Nathan's here as always.
Oh, Kungaloosh, everybody. Kungaloosh.
And Rob.
Shivako Squad, what's up?
All right. Now, those of you who've watched the show for a little while might notice that the sidebar over there is a little sparse tonight. We've got a couple big topics and a kind of a light one to break them up in the middle. Let's start off with the Skyliner issues that occurred. So for those of you who haven't heard, there was a crash involving Skyliner buckets. In one of the stations, about 3 of the buckets kind of collided in with each other, shattering plexiglass. Folks were trapped on the line for up to 3 hours while they evacuated the system. A few people were hospitalized. It appears nobody has died or anything like that. And I believe at least everyone we know about at this point who was sent to the hospital has been released. So all in all, everybody's fine now, but good grief, this thing's been open for less than a week and that's happening.
Yeah.
I think you're saying it the wrong way. 6 days, almost a week, 6 days without incident. That's really the story here.
Oh, please don't let that be the story.
But no, I just keep thinking
some
about
cast
if
member
I had
went to the board and erased the 6 and wrote a 0.
We don't even need the second digit for this thing. What the?
So everyone here was just there a week ago for the opening, and I was the only one that didn't write it because I had a baby and I'm trying to manage naps and all sorts of things. But when this broke, I couldn't help but think, oh my goodness, if I was on that and I have to worry about nursing and I'm on this thing for 3 hours and getting back and forth, like it could be a complete disaster beyond all the other everybody has bodily functions that need to happen, but nursing is a whole other one on top of it. And I was just thinking this would be a complete disaster. And now I'm never going to get on that thing. Not happening. And I was for this,
really?
And I'm not afraid of gondolas.
Really? Never again? Really?
Well, never again. I didn't get on it the first time. Not doing it. But I also drive every time I go there. Okay. Really, I'm not getting on. And I don't have a problem with gondolas. I use them other places.
I think you're going to change your. I think you're going to change your tune, but that's just me.
All right.
I think
we'll see.
I think. Oh, yeah.
But I'm not planning on getting on this thing. There are other options for me to get around property right now. I like that this was maybe going to be faster, but if the trade-off is that I might be stuck up there for 3 hours. While they try to get me down, that it's not like a risk I'm going to take. That's a huge chunk of your vacation. But maybe, you know what, you're right. If they staff up the Reedy Creek fire and rescue, then maybe I will.
Which we should explain to people that don't know.
Yeah, we very much should. Ooh, there we go.
Yeah, because I think that's super essential. I know, and then we'll throw to Jill. Reedy Creek said today, or was it yesterday? I think it was today, that they blamed half of it or more on Disney, because Disney, of course, who runs Reedy Creek, does not pay for enough emergency service people. So you think entertainment's the only thing that got cutbacks? Yeah, this is a big problem. This is the essential foundation of emergency services at Lake Buena Vista in that area. And so for them to come out, for Reedy Creek to come out in fire and rescue and say it's Disney's fault, we did our best, that says something. That means people are really mad. Anyway, that's all I want to say about that, because that's so essential to this whole conversation. Jill, go ahead.
My only hesitation about that, and don't get me wrong, Reedy Creek had talked weeks before about the Skyliner is opening and we should have more staff to account for any kind of issues. However, in this particular situation, there weren't that many actual fire truck bucket rescues out of the Skyliner cars. So I don't know that more Reedy Creek staff would have made that much of a difference in this situation. At least based on because the vast majority of people got off the Skyliner when they finally reactivated the line at a lower speed and offloaded everybody at stations. So just, I don't know how much stock to put in. Would having more staff at Reedy Creek have made that much of a difference in this situation? But I'm totally on Allison's side here. I don't know if I can ride this thing again. So it was a big step for me to get in this thing in the first place. As someone who is scared of heights, I shook like a leaf when I rode this thing. And the descent into the stations is so fast and the stop is so sudden. It's terrifying. And to know that ended in a crash where the Skyliner bucket is coming in at a really high speed and hit the next one hard enough to shatter plexiglass, or the idea that I, as being someone scared of heights, would be stuck dangling in the air for 3 hours, I would have had a full-blown panic attack up there. So that's absolutely not a risk I want to take again, knowing that this happened after 6 days of operation.
Okay,
A
can I
couple
say
things.
something now?
Yeah, go for it.
We're on clockwise.
Yeah, because
okay, go ahead, Rob.
Well, I thought you already talked a little bit, man.
No, I was
No, go for it, Rob. Go.
Well,
I
I
was just
mean, I
informing.
want to open it up as the Kool-Aid drinker in the group, and I'm pretty sure Nathan called me a pixie duster before the call, so I'm trying to figure out how to wrap my head around that one. But I will absolutely ride this again. You guys are talking about 3 hours. Nobody blinks at standing in line 3 hours for Pandora, so sometimes 3 hours is all relative. Obviously, you're hanging in the sky. I get that. Obviously, you're in with some other people, but it's not 3 days. This is not Jurassic Park. This is not buckets falling from the sky. This was it was a stop because the buckets ran into each other, and then they had to do a full stop and an evac before they could start it up again. So I'm not saying I would have wanted to be in that, but I don't see any problem with riding it again. The system still seems safe. This is a system that they run across the country in other places. I put on my Instagram account, would you guys ride this again? And I had 30 responses, and all of them were like, yes, I'd absolutely ride this again. Or I'm from a place where they have these systems, and things happen. This was not a horrible thing that happened. It was an inconvenient thing. It certainly looks super bad for them, and it's going to be an uphill battle for them to fight a PR battle to get people like Jill and Allison to ever get in these things again, or ever. But I mean, I think that this is one of those things that it happened, and when 6 days after it happened, this is still early on in the process. Obviously, they practiced for months and practiced this as cast member guinea pigs ahead of time. But this thing, if things are going to happen, they're going to happen at the beginning. Frozen Ever After, Hagrid's motorbike, all these things go down a lot when it starts. This is something they tested pretty well, and obviously not well enough. But I think that it's something that down the road, we're going to probably look back and everybody's going to say, oh, hey, that wasn't such a big deal. There were some people who wanted this to fail from the beginning. And I think a lot of times we talked about that on the blog, is there were some people who wanted this to fail from the beginning because it was going to be too hot, because it was going to be long lines. Most of that stuff was sort of debunked on the first day. Some of it was not. But I think this is something that's still in its infancy and will still do well. So that's my pixie duster speech.
I've got one quick
join you in that,
clarification, though. So the incident actually happened as the Skyliner was leaving the station, not coming in. That's not to diminish any fear someone might have of it happening in some other time and place.
Sure.
But I will also say it has been about 10 years for me since I've been on Disney bus transportation, because I find that to be a time hole as well.
Yeah,
and so this, when functioning correctly, I think is great. But in the chance of a malfunction, that's a bigger time hole for me, and that's scary, and with no benefit of riding a Banshee after. So,
so something that I want to
ahead for waiting in that line. That just happened.
Yeah,
to
you do.
With no warning.
And something that I really want to bring up here is the fact that this was a 3-hour ordeal for the folks who were stuck on here the longest. And this concluded with them being able to restart the Skyliner. If they hadn't, if this had been a motor failure, if this had been some failure where they were not able to resume the motion of this ride, I don't know how long they would have been stuck there. Because they were doing like normal evac procedures, right? And then they managed to get it to start back up again. So they got to stop doing that essentially. But how long would this have gone on if that hadn't started back up again? Like this could be a sign of a mess.
Half an hour to evacuate one car. Mm-hmm. So
like this is
multiply that times. There's hundreds of cars on the line.
This is
I mean,
not
okay. It was just one like cherry picker, right, going up and coming down.
Now I will walk that back slightly and say that they might have known that they were probably going to be able to restart it, so they didn't do a full rollout of all the manpower that they would have if they knew, okay, motor's shot, let's get everybody off now.
That's still insane.
So,
like,
it
why
is.
Wouldn't you bring out everything you have? But maybe
why wouldn't you do it?
It's within the first week.
Well,
use this as a live training exercise.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, why wouldn't you? Here's the other massive problem I had with this incident is Disney's complete lack of communication with those poor folks who were stuck up there.
Right.
Disney said nothing to them. Like they learned what was going on through social media, through websites like ours that were telling them, you are stuck up there and you ain't getting down anytime soon and there's fire trucks coming. Like how can, like, just think of the panic that some people are in and couple that with absolutely no information, complete uncertainty about what's happening, when you're getting out of there, what's going on. Like, what just a nightmare. Whoever runs their safety communications needs to go and do something else, because that is not the right job for you. If that's
but isn't that standard? But isn't that standard operating procedure for any time that you have this kind of a thing, not to cause mass panic? I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, you see it all the time that the people in the cockpit aren't necessarily going to tell you everything's happening. Oh, it's just a little turbulence, and meanwhile the cockpit's on fire. But it's one of those things where I think that they didn't want to. But they don't want to freak everybody out. At the same time, they probably want to make sure that they keep them updated, but they don't want to freak them out. So you think saying, hey, you got stuck and you're stuck for a long time?
Did they notify the people in the cars that there was an emergency supply kit in the cabin?
Yes.
Yeah, they
did. They sent that out over the radios?
Did,
Okay, all right.
Then
that's the most that they really could do.
And Ben, you and I were
but I mean, at the same
time,
hey, use your emergency supply kit, but we're not going to tell you what's going on, what the emergency is.
Right. From my perspective,
and then we got to move on after this.
I have no issue with the gondolas. I don't think the gondola is a problem. I have no issue with the mechanisms. I have issue with human error, and that is Disney's management fault. That we have these gondolas elsewhere. This is not a Disney unique system. These gondolas work. In fact, old gondolas worked. David Koenig had said, historian and writer David Koenig has said that while Disneyland's Skyway had accidents in the sense of humans falling out and being stupid and things of that nature, the mechanical elements of the Skyway never failed and stranded everybody for decades, and it went through a mountain. So somehow this new thing is doing worse in 6 days than the Skyway. Yeah. The key to a lot of this, I think, and this is where I'm mad. I'm not mad about the problem. It's progress. Progress is not always easy. That's why in the Carousel of Progress, the lights go out at one point. So my issue, though, is with Disney. And my issue is when Disney says to every news organization on the planet, no, this is not an accident.
Oh, my gosh.
This is downtime.
Yeah, we're going to have a whole discussion in the post-show about unscheduled downtime. Stay tuned for that.
My issue in general is that Disney thinks that it can piss on my Mickey hat and tell me it's raining, which is a much bigger problem overall. And that is not something that I think any of us should take, whether it be journalists or fans, take from them. that is putting people's lives in danger. It's also negating the incident for the sake of trying to save your own butt. When
this conversation's putting my show in danger. We need to move on from here.
No, we'll be all right.
I'm terribly sorry, but
we're
a good transition.
While we're in, hold on, just 1 second. While we are all online watching and seeing the problem. So I don't understand this perception issue. I don't understand how they think they can get away with that in 2019. It doesn't make any sense to me. That's the thing to be mad at. Mechanics will be fixed. We'll figure those things out. But you can't fix that without severe changes in corporate. So,
well, speaking of severe changes,
sure.
There we go. So the new Enchanted Rose Beauty and the Beast themed bar and lounge is open up over at the Grand Floridian. This is replacing Misner's. I think I'm saying that right. Misner's Lounge.
Yeah.
Meisner's.
Meisner's. Okay, thank you. Meisner's Lounge, which used to be there on the second floor. Honestly, I think it looks rather pretty. I'm a bit of a fan of the aesthetics of this place. What are other people's thoughts on this, other than the fact that the chandelier looks like a jellyfish instead of a dress?
That's probably better. So, as I think Nathan pointed out, than looking up a woman's dress.
Yep.
Somebody did. I don't know if I want to take credit for it.
I think that was me, but
yeah, I think it looks cute. I know there's been some complaints about the cocktails and the cost of them, like up to $21 or something, which is pretty expensive for a cocktail, but it's also like kind of in line with like fancy cocktail bars in New York City at this point. And that's sort of the price point that I have come to expect in Disney World, even though it is Central Florida and should not cost that. That's often what a lot of things cost. So $15, $16 for a cocktail, I think is not as outrageous as a lot of the prices at Disney generally. But I think it's cute. It looks relaxed. I like the color scheme. You don't see a lot of like darker choices in paint. My biggest issue with it is like, why the Grand Floridian for this?
Yeah.
It's not. I don't. But when I think about it, there's lots of things in the Grand Floridian that don't really fit. Like Mary Poppins is not at all Floridian. Why do we have like Mary Poppins character stuff going on there? But for whatever reason, because it's like a Victorian style, we accept it. And now, but this is now French. There's so much muddling of things, and then the pool is Alice with the Mad Hatter. So, this is where we're just throwing things all over the place. But if we're doing it well, I don't mind. It's a comfortable place to be.
Yeah, first of all, it's gorgeous. I mean, in an era where Disney seems to be cutting back a little bit on going full out with theming, I think this is just beautiful. I'm so disappointed that I left 2 days before it opened.
Yeah.
Agreed on the cocktails, although I would argue that they're using really high quality ingredients. So at least you're getting a $15 cocktail with some really nice top shelf liquor in it. So I don't know. I mean, I would go there. I would hang out. I think, yes, from a perspective of how does this fit into the Grand Floridian, I mean, they're shoving IPs everywhere that they don't necessarily fit exactly, but at least the same level of, this is meant to be a high-end lounge. It's clear that this was not ever going to fit into a value resort or even a moderate resort. And so they had limited choices, and I think this was a good choice. I think it looks really nice, and I can't wait to go next time I'm back.
Yeah. All right, moving to our other massive topic of the night from there. Epcot Forever has debuted, and people have been raving about it in at least one sense of that word. Trust me, folks, it is a good thing that Pete Carney is not on tonight, or none of us would get a word in edgewise on this topic. He has very strong opinions on this matter. I recommend you check his Twitter out if you haven't. I personally haven't seen the show yet. I know a couple folks here have. Of the folks who did, what do you think of this whole new world that we're in?
All four of us did, didn't we?
Yeah,
We were
I
all
think
there, right?
I'd like to start here because I've got, I think, a very full view. I watched this show and I had every emotion imaginable in a 11-minute period. I felt joy, I felt wonder, I felt surprise and happiness and lots of nostalgia, and then I felt fear and anger and disappointment. Well, it was unbelievable because the show started and they were playing songs from my childhood, and they even when they did the veggie fruit song, they had like the colored fireworks that matched with the fruit of the veggies, and I laughed with glee. I thought this is hilarious, and I feel all the things, and they had some dramatic songs from Tomorrow's Child. I mean, it was wonderful. I had all the feels, and I thought this is wonderful. And then they brought out these like amazing kites, and as soon as the kites came out, you could hear the crowd go, oh, which was really a similar sound to what you hear when you ride Flight of Passage. When people are flying, you hear this like wonder and glee and surprise, and I was like, this is really, really cool. And then one of the kites almost took out the crowd because it came a little bit too low. And then one of the kites caught fire. And then one of the sets of kites already had a series of lights that were out while the other ones around, and it was day one and the thing was already broken, and I thought, I don't understand. And then the whole thing ends, and instead of playing an Epcot song, they play A Whole New World for no reason, with no explanation, and my heart just dropped and everything, and it ruined everything. And those are my thoughts.
Yeah, it did feel like it ended and there was this quiet, and then I felt like you could have heard somebody way off in the distance go, "Blasphemy! Blasphemy!"
And that someone was Pete Carney.
Yeah, he was already in the Old Testament weeping and gnashing of teeth phase. But there was, I don't know what we expected. This is not an easy show to make everybody happy with. If you go full old school Epcot, half the audience is going to be like, I don't know, like, I was born in 92. Like, what is this? And then
I resemble that remark.
No, I get it. But there is a general audience that has no connection with veggie, fruit. We just have to acknowledge that. The thing is, though, is to go with A Whole New World, it's just like this weird, you could have done anything. You have Moana that's like just hanging out about ready to, we all know she's coming. You can throw that in and we'll be like, okay, that's fine. We really wouldn't have a problem with that. I really don't think we would have. But there's something about, like, they were thinking like a whole new world, like, a whole new world. And it was like, wait a minute. This is literally like a wife showing up to her husband's funeral with a new lover already. Like, it's like, what are we doing? Like can we, like, the corpse is not cold. Can we at least bury it, and then you can have your new husband and it's fine, but like, let's bury it. So they took the, I wrote a big editorial about it, and what I said at the end was, I felt like I was told it was a party. I went, people were in black, and then I was sold a timeshare, because it felt like a crummy commercial. Like, once it all like came about, I was like, and this is not new. They did this for the 30th when it came to the Wonderful World of Animation projection show. It ends with a commercial for Runaway Railway. There's this new thing where they're like, check out the new thing we're doing, and you're like, a commercial is not an experience, right?
Yeah. It's not synergy.
What people come for.
It's just an ad.
It's weird. I love most of it. The end's very weird. It's not comparable to Illuminations. We should never compare it to Illuminations. It's not supposed to be compared to Illuminations. That's apples in like a bagel. Like, we don't compare them, right? This thing is for a very short amount of time, and we shouldn't try to say this. It's lauded or try to compare it to that. Let's compare Harmonious to it. So I think that a lot of people have been
fair.
doing that online, and I disagree with that. But yeah, it's just rough, people. It's just not. It's. I love the music though. Beforehand, I got a chance to talk to the composer, and like his heart was in it, and he was a really nice guy, and like you could, and I'm not saying I have an interview coming up with him.
I was just about to ask.
Podcast that I do, but maybe. So there'll be questions asked. But yeah, like I think there was a lot of good intention by some of the creatives, and then I think corporate really sort of did that.
Rob, do you disagree with this negativity floating around?
As captain of the Pixie Dust team, no, I mean, I think Nathan hit on a lot of the little points that I think he accidentally got a little positive on it. So, but
I have no trouble being positive.
But so I think that it's a filler show. I mean, it is not designed. I mean, we all sat in that in that panel where we listened to everybody talking about Illuminations, and as much as a fan of Illuminations as I was when I went in, I came out being a mega super Mondo fan of Illuminations, and was so sad to see it go because I knew so much more about it and how much work went into it and how many people worked on it, how many years it was done. So you just like to compare it and say, hey, we took away Illuminations and we put this in its place is not accurate, because this is a filler show until they get to Harmonious. We can beat up Harmonious for not being Illuminations when that happens, so buckle up for that one. But for right now, I mean, this is a filler show, and I think for a filler show, it's a pretty good show. And obviously, there were a couple technical issues, but I think those do happen on day one. I don't think the kite was broken. I think it was not I think it was malfunctioning, and we can use Disney PR speak for that if we need to.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that if there are going to be things that go bad, that would be on the first day. But to me, just the show itself was a good show, and I think a lot of us were sitting there enjoying it. But it just is so funny to me that what basically sent people about to like kick and scream and burn down the place was the whole new world, because at the very beginning they say we're celebrating the past, present, and future of Epcot. And so if a whole new world is the centerpiece of Harmonious, I think that makes sense. If it's not, then maybe it doesn't make sense. But it would make sense if for it to be the center, because we're talking about IP that represents all the different areas, and a whole new world would tie all those together. So I think that that's why they put it in there. But it is so funny to me that that's what set everybody off.
I hadn't considered that at all. That's brilliant.
Right, but market the show that way then.
Yeah,
Don't
you do.
sucker
Yeah,
people.
They did in the beginning.
It is probably the greatest bait and switch.
Yeah, it's
No,
that was your expectation. That was your expectation.
Jill, you got a shot at this.
It was billed to us the whole time as this celebration of the past, of Epcot's origin. And then they sneak in this, and present and future too. And so we're going to throw some Aladdin at you out of complete left field. Like earlier talking about
that was like 5% of the whole show, though. That was like 5% of the whole show. And if you put Moana in there, you're still not celebrating. I'm just saying, that was a small portion.
Okay. Nighttime spectaculars are not easy to create. And you're creating this one in a shortened time period because it's only meant to be a transition, like a placeholder in between the old and the new. Why try to accomplish something so grandiose as saying, we're going to transition everyone from Illuminations into Harmonious, which they don't even know what they're transitioning into yet.
Mm-hmm.
When we know all they really want is this celebration of old school Epcot. Like, why do something that people didn't want for the sake of preparing them for something they don't even know what's coming? Like, just why, if you're doing this temporary show, it would have been so easy. Like, everything else about the show didn't have to change. Just leave it all be original Epcot music. The other thing that frustrated me about that was, why did they have to do remakes of all of those songs? Why couldn't they have used the original songs? Yeah. That drove me nuts, because it would have been so easy and it would have been so much more satisfying. Don't get me wrong, I literally bounced up and down when they played Veggie Fruit and watching all the pavilions light up in different colors. Like, I loved that, but I would have loved it more if they had used the original music.
Yep.
Like I don't understand why they tried to accomplish something that didn't need to be accomplished.
And on that note, that is going to end it for tonight, folks. Thank you all for joining us. If you would like to make a trip down to see either Epcot Forever and kind of, I don't know, MST3K it, or go see Harmonious when that opens up, highly recommend you head on over to Never Grow Up Vacations, the official travel partner of WDWNT. They're an authorized Disney vacation planner whose focus is in making magic for their clients, and with over 20 years of experience booking Disney vacations, we're sure they can help you make your next trip even more magical. So head on over to wdwnt.travel to contact them about your next trip today. That is going to do it for tonight's show, folks. Thank you all for joining us. Tune in tomorrow night, Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern for WDW News Tonight, where we're going to have a bit of I'm looking forward to the discussion topic for tomorrow night. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's going to be a bit of a fun one, so I recommend you tune in for that. If you want to watch this show live, we record live every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, over at youtube.com/WDWNT, where you can subscribe and hit the bell to get notified every time we go live. Or check us out over at the WDWN Tunes, where we stream and have 24/7 streaming Disney radio as well. So check that out if you haven't yet. If you are one of our WIGS members, stay tuned. We do have a post show coming up in just a moment. If not, that's how we refer to our patrons. You can head on over to patreon.com/WDWNT. Become one of our patrons over there for as little as $2 a month. Get access to our post show, the post show for News Tonight, and a whole host of other benefits. So I recommend you check that out if you haven't yet. That's patreon.com/WDWNT. All right, that's going to end the show for real, folks. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you all next week or in the post show.
Bum, 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 bum.
Downtime.
I don't know.